1:15, and it's for Guillaume Antalik to tell us something about chemical characteristics of blaufränkisch. So, Guillaume, please take the stage. And the lights should be on, or yes, okay, it should be more. Yes, please.
Okay, maybe I will take. Just let it work. No. Yeah. No. I will speak like that. And like that. Okay. Okay. Good. So I won't bother you too much with too much chemistry because it's already late. But I would like to show you a few results that we recently obtained on the chemical characterization of sensory typicality somehow, or typicality on the blaufränkisch wine. It has been quite described today what are somehow like that. Yeah, I would prefer like that. I could see. It was described today by our different. Sorry.
Did it work? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Perfect. What is the typicality of blaufränkisch? What are the typicalities of blaufränkisch? We have the opportunity yesterday to taste a wide range of Slovene blaufränkisch, and tomorrow even more like that. Okay. And tomorrow even more with the wide range of blaufränkisch coming from 6-7 different countries. But even if when you go to Austria, if you go to Carnuntum, when you have like more red fruit driven, and when you go more to Mittelburgenland, which is more this dark fruit, spicy character, we have, despite all these typicalities, there's always this characteristics of freshness, acidity that we were speaking about, floral character, go from red fruit to more darker fruit. So it's quite wide, but you still have some red line. But so far, actually it was pretty difficult for me to find when I came here, and now you are a bit all familiar with my love for this variety. And as a wine scientist also, I was just really eager to find, okay, what has been done so far on this variety from scientific point of view, and as expert in wine aromas and say working a lot on wine typicality and sensory parts also. I couldn't find much actually which has been done, and that's also why I wanted to link with my colleague from Klosterneburg to discuss, because the problem that we have in this part of Europe, in Austria it's the case, in Hungary it's even not the case. A lot of studies done here are just kept and not published, and when I publish in their own language, German or Hungarian, so not the whole world can read them. And, but in fact, it's what is available in the literature is very few. I found these two studies. The first one on the left is from Hungary, done like I think it like about 15 years ago. I didn't learn much here, and also recently, but that is more on the, let's say, wine composition, not related to aromas. It's more kind of basic wine composition. It was done in Slovenia, actually, by some colleagues from Ljubljana University. So the idea of this, to start to work on it, it was basic. Let's select some wine. And sorry, I forgot to mention that this, and I can mention here, this work, of course, has been done at the University of Novogorica, where I'm working, and with our team present here, our colleague from the labs, but also it was done in the context of bachelor thesis, actually, and it was done in collaboration with the University of Bordeaux also, and you will see that now. So what we did, we picked different, about, you see, 80 nearly 80 blaufränkisch wines from 2 different vintages to avoid to have the wide vintage effect. It was mainly from Austria and Slovenia. It's a start, so of course the next step will be to get samples more from Hungary, from Croatia, from Slovakia, and etc., from Germany also. And we just did some basic analysis of parameters that are important for the expression of the typicality of blaufränkisch wines based the wine magazine. When you go and see the producer, when you start to taste a lot of blaufränkisch, there is quite some descriptors which are coming back. So it was first some important for taste, and we are speaking about freshness, so we did some basic analysis of pH and total acidity, also in different organic acids, but I won't show you that because we still have to process the data. But also the extra layer, which was very interesting for me, it's one of we are speaking about the freshness acidity. And when you come to that, it is really characteristic that we should keep for this variety. For certain consumer, it's still, especially when you have a bit of rustic tannin, it can be a bit problematic. So my idea was to try to look at also compounds which can a bit soft this acidity, and some compound responsible of sweetness. And there's only one group working in the world for now, very highly expert on this kind of compound. They are in Bordeaux, and it's from a group led by my colleague and friend, Professor Axel Marshall. And they were analyzing this wine for compounds which were recently shown to contribute to sweetness of dry wines, which is called acetyl isomers. In terms of aromatic compound, you will see we had a range of compounds coming from the fermentation, but of course also from the grape. So what did we have? That's not revolutionary, but it's good to put a bit of numbers and just to realize that when you analyze simple parameter, when you compare, and also what is very important, I didn't mention before, if you want to know, to highlight the characteristic of something, it's always interesting to compare to something which is very different. We did it successfully in the past when we were working in Australia, highlighting some new compounds responsible of the typicality of Australian Cabernet Sauvignon, and comparing Cabernet Sauvignon with Shiraz wine. And here the idea was the same. Let's take blaufränkisch, let's compare with kind of benchmark international variety from the same regions, okay, or country. Because sometimes, especially in Slovenia, you won't find in general Bordeaux variety grown in the same region as blaufränkisch. Pinot Noir, it's a bit easier. So what do we see here? So you can see that indeed, from a chemical point of view, blaufränkisch wine had significantly higher level of total acidity and lower pH. So basically what we pick, comparing 40 blaufränkisch wines from different regions from Austria, different regions from Slovenia, in comparison to Bordeaux Blanc and to Pinot Noir, we also, from a chemical point of view, this freshness, it's confirmed. But of course, it's not only the pH at TA, and more work should be done in terms of type of acidity, but that is quite a tricky one. Okay. So next group that we explore was done in the laboratory with the team in Bordeaux, with the team of Professor Axel Marshall. So it's about this acetyl isomer, which are natural sweetener. And what we found here was very interesting, but actually it confirmed what Axel groups started to show recently in this paper actually. But not interesting for blaufränkisch. And you see here, you have on the top right corner, you have the acetyl, and then on the left bottom corner, you have the isomer of this acetyl. And you see that significantly, substantially, Pinot Noir has much higher level in comparison of this compound in comparison to Isoacylbin in comparison, sorry, to blaufränkisch and Bordeaux variety. And these levels are above the sensory threshold, so they contribute to sweetness. And it's something that they showed already in Bordeaux like 2-3 years ago, that actually Pinot Noir in comparison to Burgundy Red, in comparison to Bordeaux Red, it's the same pattern. It's probably up to between 5 and 10 times higher level of this acylbin in Pinot Noir wine in comparison to Bordeaux variety. And we didn't find, so in blaufränkisch it was lower level, it was actually it's pretty much the same as in Bordeaux variety, maybe slightly less, but the same range. But and maybe it can be some thought can be shared. With the experience that I have in terms of winemaking here in Slovenia, and especially working on terroir selection, I already noticed that according to the plot, and acidity won't change, but you will have some wine that we tend to give kind of like, of course, fuller body, but kind of sweetness with kind of soften this acidity more than the other one. And when you check the chemical parameter, pH, TA are pretty much the same, but the perception is different. So basically here, we have to work out more on that point. But you will see the world of wine aroma has been already quite explored, and we still don't know a lot. But the world of wine taste, we know almost nothing, because it's not easy to work with. And to move forward to have the right experiment that will scientifically prove, demonstrate that such compounds can contribute to this taste. Okay, but that was the interesting to see. Okay, there is clearly something with Pinot, but for blaufränkisch we have to move forward and to try to find something else. Okay, now what about wine aroma? Because when we speak about typicality, the aromatic part is very important. Just a reminder, so wine aroma can be classified in different categories, and I'm often quite amused to see all the, let's say, the scientists are using a different way a bit than the sommelier sometimes. But from a scientific point of view, okay, you have the primary, secondary, tertiary. Primary is coming from the grapes. So when we're speaking about this primary character going down with aging, is not about only like because of the fermentation, because primary aroma is coming from the grapes. You have different type. Either you have some aroma which are present in a free form, and there is not a lot. Actually, here you can see, give few examples like Parazine, giving this green pepper in Bordeaux variety. Pepperiness, just pepper in Syrah, but as well in blaufränkisch, and that's the part that in progress as well with our colleague from Kostenneborg. They are currently busy to analyze these samples for Rotondon. So I'm quite looking forward to get to see what will come out from this comparison. And but also, okay, in Muscat variety, you have these free terpins. I will skip the in the middle, this varietal pre-fermentative. I will come back quickly just after. And then you have what's happening during the fermentation. So you are either some compound which are varietal compound coming from the grape, but need the fermentation to be revealed, like varietal thiols, for instance, or most of these terpenol, terpins also in most of the variety which has, let's say, neutral, not highly aromatic. And then, of course, you have everything which is produced by yeast, meaning that you don't need grapes to produce this aroma, but they are not closed box. So basically, the grape composition will influence a lot as well what's going on in terms of production of aroma during fermentation. Okay, so that's the reason why also we included some fermentative compounds, some of these compounds like esters in this study to check if potentially it could have a varietal effect also on these compounds due to the impact of the, for example, nitrogen or lipids on the yeast metabolism that will modify the production of esters, for example. It's something which is known in pinotage, for instance, in South Africa. And the varietal prefermentative, it's some kind of compounds like this C6 alcohol that will bring this greenness, fresh grass, cut grass character, which are formed during the crushing and then the fermentation, but you need the grapes for that. So, and afterwards, it's tertiary aroma that we won't speak too much today because it's in general developed during aging, and we were working with 2 to 3 years old wines. So what about esters? So we analyzed the 3 groups of esters, ethyl ester of medium chain fatty acid, alcohol acetate, and ethyl ester of branch acid. They are from different origin. I won't speak in details, just to introduce the different type of compounds we analyze. And in general, the backbone on the fruitiness. They're produced by yeast, but the grape composition can strongly influence the production during fermentation. And they're actually contrary to what's believed, they're pretty stable in wine aging, especially in red wine, they're pretty stable. Even this group of ethyl ester of branch acid increase with aging. Okay, so somehow when this very fruity fermentative aroma, especially in red wine, fade away with time, is not only due to these compounds are going down because they're pretty stable, it's more due to complexity, chemical reaction happening with other compounds that start to balance. You know, it's aromas. It's always a question of layers, okay? So what do we find out here? If we look at the whole group of esters, it was actually nothing much happening, no varietal differences. If you have the total esters, why we do that? Because why we show like that, putting compound together, doing a sum. It's because the time to try to explain one aroma, one compound, one aroma is I wouldn't say gone because we always have some new discovery for a very specific compound, but it's much more complex. And you have often some synergy between compounds. So that can give you an idea if there is in general more esters in one type of wine and not other. And in that case, no varietal differences. It was somehow not that surprising. But when you go more in detail, you can see that we had, according to the group, more specifically of type of esters, we had some, on the wine that we were analyzing, varietal differences, with the Bordeaux variety that tended to have a little bit more esters and was significant, even if it was not substantial. In comparison to blaufränkisch and Pinot Noir, the least was in Pinot Noir and the highest was in blaufränkisch, especially if you look at higher alcohol acetate and ethyl ester of branch acid, which for me makes sense because these 2 groups of esters are the most influenced by the grape composition and some more by what's going on in the vineyard, whereas these ethyl ester fatty acids are more influenced by what's going on in the winery, especially in terms of temperature of fermentation. So some varietal differences, but nothing to say, okay, yeah, that will for sure contribute to blaufränkisch typicality, because that's what we're interested. What I'm showing you now, we analyze more compound than that, but I'm showing you the compound that we saw varietal differences. And for instance, here I didn't put, because I will go directly to some varietal, I didn't put the C6 alcohol, for instance, which are responsible for this green cut grass character. And I was very interested to see if we see something, because we always have this herbal character in some type of blaufränkisch according to the region and vintage. And actually, we didn't see any differences, anything in terms of as well quantity that could tell, okay, these compounds can contribute to the typicality of blaufränkisch. In comparison to, for instance, Shiraz, especially when it's harvested a bit earlier, when we found some interesting results in South Africa, in Australia, here is nothing. So next group is the Noisoprinoids. They're coming from the grapes, okay? In the grapes, they are present in under the form of what you call aglycones, so you cannot smell them, and then the fermentation will reveal them, even fermentation and the first months, couple of years of aging. So here I just gave you some example of most well-known Noisoprinoids. Maybe you are familiar with the TDN, which is responsible for this petroleum node that we have in Riesling. So far, I don't know any red variety that show this notes. And then, okay, beta-damascenon, beta-ionon. Yeah, beta-ionon, very interesting. There is a belief that beta-ionon, because you smell it, it smells violet, and as well it's important for raspberry. That's the compound responsible of the typicality of this violet character from Rhone Valley. Yeah, exactly. But the fact is that there is no scientific evidence that shows that, because in general, Syrah wine don't have higher level of this compound in comparison to others. But I might have the beginning of answer pass for you. Yeah. And we'll see that afterwards at the end of the presentation. So here, that's are the Noisoprinoids that show some differences, and we see we start to have some interesting stuff going on with blaufränkisch. And we see that we have the TDN, actually, and then the 2 VT spirants. So the question is now that we show clear varietal impact, is it enough to contribute to the wine, to the sensory profile of the wine? Here, I have some doubts, because but still, it cannot be excluded, because you never know, it's very complex matrix wine. Because here we are working with some concentration which are quite far from what we call the perception threshold, meaning the level of concentration that people will be able to perceive it. To give you an example with the blaufränkisch and with TDN, it's around like 0.25. Actually, should be microgram per liter. The threshold in wine is around 2 micrograms per liter, which is 10 times higher. So even in the case of this synergistic effect, meaning that even when you have compound at very low level, that you shouldn't be able to perceive them, they can contribute to wine aroma. Here, I think we're pretty far, but you never know, okay? And I think there is some, you have some data as well about all this part, and I know that in the Kostenenburg, they are working on this aspect and to try to figure out something. So more results will come in the future. And then VT spiran also is quite far from the reported sensory threshold, but of course that will have to be confirmed. Next one, I went a bit fast. There we go. Next one, so the group of terpins and terpenoids, and especially terpins, which are a very interesting group, very important group for not only for grapes but for plants in general, which are contributing to some varietal character. But what is quite interesting is so far it was believed that it was mainly important for some variety, white variety in terms of white wine, especially, okay, Muscat, which is well known, is very characteristic of Muscat wine. Floral character is coming from some of those guys that we show you afterwards. But also Riesling. And recently, some studies show that there is some important, at lower level, but some important things going on in red wine also. We did it in Australia, again, on Cabernet Sauvignon, but I believe in Shiraz, maybe even more than on Cabernet Sauvignon. In the past, something was done on Touriga Nacional as well, which is quite important. Some of these terpenol are quite important in this variety. So there is recently, for the last 10 years, for people working in the field of wine research and with aroma, it is a very important group of compounds to focus on. And especially when it comes to blaufränkisch and Shiraz, and that's what I feel like for now is speculative, because we have to do some proper sensory study. This compound looks to be quite interesting, which are linalol, geraniol, citronellol. They are these one which are driving this muscat nose somehow. But when you put them in lower concentration, and especially together, because they're acting really like they have big synergetic effect together, in red wine, they might be able to kind of bring this kind of floral character on the top of this red fruit, and I was I suspect it based on previous analysis done in a few years ago on few wines from our cellar and in Slovenia, in Bela Krajina, showing some interesting level of this compound that could explain this kind of blueberry, raspberry type of aroma that you find often in blaufränkisch. But let's see what we get. First, that's some monoterpins, caren, limonen, alpha-terpinolene. Again, we see blaufränkisch as the significant higher level of these terpins in comparison to the Pinot Noir and Bordeaux varieties. Is that the sensory impact? We don't know, because actually these guys also have strong synergetic effect together, but it has never been really studied how do they interact in red wine. So that's open new perspective of research. Rose oxides. Rose oxides are compounds, especially on the top, cis rose oxide is very important for the typicality of Gewürztraminer aroma. It's like a floral touch. And we see that, again, we have blaufränkisch, which is very close, actually slightly higher than Pinot, but higher clearly than Bordeaux variety. But we had some case, which these graphs don't show that there was quite above 0.3 microgram per liter, which start to be at the Paris threshold level. So for some example of blaufränkisch is not excluded that it could potentially contribute. But very interesting is this nerol oxide. It's interesting because it's probably the compound for which it was the most obvious varietal difference. It was up to 10 times higher in blaufränkisch compared to Pinot Noir, but we don't know what is the impact of this compound in wine because it's pretty new, and the trick is as well pretty difficult to get the standard to try to do some research. It's quite expensive thing to get. So, but in the future, for sure, we will try to explore if it's only a chemical marker or if it can be also a marker which could be responsible of a certain level of typicality of blaufränkisch. And the last slides of results, what I was mentioning before, that it was the hypothesis to look at this terpenol. Actually, the hypothesis was confirmed from a chemical point of view, showing that blaufränkisch also has higher contents of linalol, O-trienol, terpinol, actually I forgot, and geraniol also. And all this compound was already described a while ago, like by Pascal Hébrault-Gaillan in the late 70s, a really strong synergistic effect together. So when you see the value that you have here, it's significantly higher in blaufränkisch than Pinot. It's not that it's crazy high, but it's more or less around the threshold probably in this one. But because they are together, I strongly suspect that they will contribute to this. You know, when you smell blaufränkisch, you don't smell muscat. It's subtle. It's like something, oh, I smell it, I smell it less. So it's not like in your face, you know, that's what we call complexity. And here it's what's happening. And it was the same conclusion we made as well regarding the floral character that we have in Syrah. That is asked again to be demonstrated by proper sensory study, but highly likely, I wouldn't be surprised that those guys are important contributor to this typicality, and actually they are the one also responsible of this type of fruitiness that you find in Touriga Nacional also. Okay, so basically it's a take-home message. So blaufränkisch wines have higher, let's say, acidity parameter, higher TA, lower pH. So that was kind of logical, but at least we show in the study. Terpins seem to be an important group of compounds for blaufränkisch aromatic typicality, and that for me makes sense also. By experience, I could, with someone very varietal blaufränkisch, like this floral character, spicy, and very fruity, but with quite low level of esters and quite higher level of terpins. So meaning that they are really, I believe they are really the main driver, this group of compound, which is complex group of compound, that the main driver of blaufränkisch typicality. And they're also very much influenced by terroir and by climate. So for me, that makes even more sense that those guys are really the key player for blaufränkisch typicality, aromatic typicality. And especially when you look at the terpenols, which could, I think, play a key role in this floral of this shade of fruity notes like blueberry, raspberry type of compound. We need to do some complementary analysis. Some are on the way, as I said, for the rotondon, for instance, which are responsible for the peppery character, and so on and more. And of course, we need to do more future sensory studies, and also to explore the next step, the regional terroir difference, and to see what's going on with samples coming from Hungary, coming from Slovakia, coming from a bit different place, but also to have maybe a bigger range of one country like Austria or Slovenia to see the different regions, sub-regions, etc., etc. So that's the next step. So thank you very much for your attention. And as people say here, especially in Sevnica, pije modro. Thank you, hvala.
Thank you, Guillaume. Please stay there. I'm inviting all the speakers to take place at the chairs because round table is going on. Sorry?
It's a round table.
Yeah. It's not here.
Yeah, it's here.
Yeah.
But Dolly made the round table. So
Yes.
It's not all the speakers. It's different speakers, actually.
Aha.
So yeah, Jeremy.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry.
And pass.
Pass. Yeah. Okay. And you take over. Yeah. Sure.
Hvala, Govat.
Is this on? Is this working? Yes. Yeah. So we had many presentations to very intense subjects. I think we really learned a lot of things. And we would just cover now in this discussion on the podium questions that are maybe still open. So now you can think whether you have still questions to ask. And while you think, I will ask some questions to those who are already here. First of all, to Jamie, who is a wine writer, an early writer on blaufränkisch wines, and he currently lives in the UK, or maybe his apartment is in the UK because he is traveling the world all the time again. And we didn't have any view from Brexit land on blaufränkisch so far. So maybe you could give us a little bit update on what the British think about this grape and whether you can get it anywhere in London, for example.
So the first thing I would have to do is say, when you look at a wine market like the UK, it's complex and you have to segment it. So there are, in broad terms, we have the wines normal non-involved consumers might drink, whether they tend to shop in supermarkets, and at that level, blaufränkisch hasn't yet, become part of the public consciousness. So one of the things I do is I write a column for a tabloid newspaper. So I attend all the supermarket press tastings, I see what they're showing. And while blaufränkisch isn't yet part of that fixture, one of the things I've noticed in the major supermarkets in the UK is an increasing shift towards wines that are a bit lighter. Yes, we've still got the fruity, friendly, New World style wines, but we've got a lot more freshness and wines with brighter fruit flavors of the sort that blaufränkisch at a lower price point would certainly fit into. We've also noticed like a couple of the major supermarkets like Waitrose and Marks and Spencer's have got ranges where they're deliberately buying exotic things that normal customers wouldn't necessarily have asked for, because a lot of customers will ask for familiar things like Sauvignon Blanc, Chardonnay, those are Pinot Grigio, but they're actually offering a sub-range that they've chosen. They're asking the customer to trust them, so it's a push rather than a pull of quite interesting exotic varieties, and that's the sort of place where blaufränkisch can flourish. Now, if you move up a segment to independent wine shops and restaurants, interesting restaurants, then I think blaufränkisch is very much already part of the landscape there. And we're not quite seeing so much, and I'd also emphasize that blaufränkisch is the name that everyone will recognize. Less so Lemberger, less so Kekfränkisch. You know, I think that's something that seems to have grabbed people's attention. And the UK is a very inquisitive market. It's very open to things from outside because most of the stuff comes from outside. So we don't have a big slot taken by our domestic production. That's a very tiny niche thing. So we're open to these things. And so in that sense, blaufränkisch is ably equipped to flourish because it's interesting, because of most of the styles you encounter now of blaufränkisch aren't the sort of oaky, slightly overripe, aspirational styles that were described so well this morning. You know, this new range of lighter extraction, emphasis on freshness, purity, direct fruit. Sort of the time is ready, so the door's not quite ajar, so it just needs a little push.
Thank you. I think what you have described as an upcoming category in the UK market, this is something that Soli is just doing, and I think you just were quite successful. Soli Heimann from Sexherd in Hungary with your new wine. Can you just give us an update on what's happening in the UK market with your wines?
Yes, first and foremost, thank you very much for the invitation, Guillaume, and Dorle to this stage as well. Maybe I'm the only Hungarian here. That's a pity, but anyway, I'm still
only the best.
Still glad to be here. Yes, so in Hungary, you have to imagine we are in probably similar shoes than Slovenia, just a little bit bigger, everything. So the market has opened quite a lot in the past 30 years, but still we are working mostly inside the borders of Hungary. And what I recognized from my studies is that we have to open to the export markets with our indigenous varieties. So that's what we started working with. We are putting our emphasis on Kadarka and Kekfränkisch. So, and especially to the UK market, but actually there is a lot of interest from several markets, even from overseas, and definitely the Netherlands, Germany, right now even from France and Austria, and let's mention Ireland here as well, next to the UK. There is definitely even a nicer or easier for us to export Kadarka, which is a very light red wine. It's probably not as an aficionado wine as blaufränkisch or Kekfränkisch. Probably it's even simpler to understand. It's very gastronomic, very, very good to drink. Although with Kekfränkisch, I think there is this challenge that we have to develop it kind of together. So I would like to get back to Paz, who mentioned that there is an opportunity to create a system and a context through this variety. And I think if we are speaking about the Carpathian Basin and the Alps or this mid-European climates, then probably blaufränkisch is the red variety. That's our best common denominator for that. And that's what I set out to do from my frog's perspective in the south of Hungary.
Thank you. So I think what you describe as your wine and what Jamie said, it's about more the younger wines, the crispy, and it's very successful, I think, with young sommeliers, young target groups, and so on. I have now a question posed to Bart and Mr. Triebaumer, the family that is the big pioneers. I'm not sure whether this has been discussed in any of the presentations today. Is like maturing blaufränkisch in the bottle, for example, and what would be first in the cask and then in the bottle. What does it do to the wine, and what would you think is a perfect age on when a more classical, so maybe not the young, I call it tattoo and beard sommelier guys, but more for the classic wines, classic blaufränkisch. What would be the ideal age to release them and or to taste them or to serve them if you give them a little bit age in the bottle and in the cask? I don't know who wants to. The producer and then the sommelier maybe, yeah.
For me, is every wine from every blaufränkisch from our house have his own right time, I think, to start to taste it. So I think the only wrong thing what you can do is to drink all bottles. So I prefer to start to drink with young wines, but the last bottles you have to store, so you can see they can age very well. So we are famous for this. And so also the maturing time in the barrel, it depends of the style of the wine. So I think we prefer to produce a very classic blaufränkisch also, like a village wine. And this is the idea of a blaufränkisch like our grandfather had it. So it's a wine, he don't work with mussels. It's very fruity, but tells about the soil, the microclimate, and the philosophy of the producers, but with an elegant way. So it's matured in only very old big barrels. And then with the single vineyard wines, we also work with smaller barrels and with longer maturing times.
So how long do you keep your best blaufränkisch in the barrel, and how long do you keep it when after bottling in the bottle before you release them?
We mature our top single vineyard wines. We mature for nearly 2 years in barrel. After then, we have a small time for second sedimentation in stainless steel, and then we bottle them without filtration. But after bottling, we go to sell them, and we are very happy when there are some bottles stay very long in the cellars. So also we store a small part and release them 10 years after.
10 years after bottling, or 10 years after the harvest.
It's only a small part of the production.
Yeah.
But later, I need the question from you. I think before this last time in the cellar, there is the other point, and it's the biodiversity in the vineyard. I want to speak later with this.
Yes, thank you. Paz, for your experience on the table in the restaurant, what is your guess? What would be a good age for blaufränkisch?
Yes, it depends also, as we have also wine shops and bistro and the gastronomic restaurant. I think there is also blaufränkisch for each point of selling point, and I think that is one of the the good things about blaufränkisch. I'm still the things similarities with Malbec, but it's very versatile in the young style. And they're very fresh, and you can very juicy and young. So it's very good to sell because, well, it's not high tannins structure, so it's easier than a Cabernet Franc from the Loire, for example, when it's very, very young. But we have also very good experience with also your wines, for example, when it has matured for 7-10 years, that are lovely, that are very, very well balanced, and that the fruit, well, it changes a lot, but it has this spiciness and more forest floor. That I think that with 6 years, 7 years are lovely as well. Yesterday we tasted also 10 years, and it's beautiful. So I think if we can cellar certain vineyards, certain special wines, I think is what we have to do in this system as well, not to have only the young versions, but also to find mature blaufränkisch to show the potential of the grape. Well, yesterday was, I think, my oldest blaufränkisch wine yesterday night, 83, and then at 2000. That was very, very interesting both. Thank you. And but yes, I think it's a grape that can age gracefully.
Thank you. So going back to the vineyards and the diversity, would you like to give it here? Yeah. Thank you.
So for us, yes, blaufränkisch is our best and loveliest variety, and but the whole vineyards what we have with all varieties, we work especially so focused for much biodiversity and a very intense green cover. Not only for this beautiful picture of flowers and insects and birds, there is some more. There is the only way of get the energy of the sun get into the soil, our soils, the feeding out and give the place for our vines, is photosynthesis. And so we need a biodiversity of green cover to feed the soil life, so we get healthy vines and we get a very rich soil life. This is a contact from the roots of our vines to the soil and to the terroir also. And we can prepare the soils for the next generation, so we can save it. Not only save it, we can do it more healthy, especially in vineyards. So the vines don't need to work. We don't have to work all time, and these are no vegetables. They have no problem with a little bit concurrence. And there are many of synergetic points that come with more biodiversity in the vineyard, and also when we do more biodiversity in the landscape, so we plant also trees, then the system goes more stable. And then we can find a way without fighting against the nature balance. So the nature want balance. They're searching for biodiversity. And when we do a monoculture, so we have the vineyard and grass between or open soil, then we are the monoculture and the nature fighting against us. And I think it's not the right way for the next generations. So we have to do a big focus on the biodiversity and on an intense concurrence for the wines, so they get a very good combination with the soil life, and so they have a very intense contact with our soil. And we get lighter bunches, especially blaufränkisch, have a very good reaction on an intense concurrence, so get lighter bunches, they get very light, and there are air between, they stay healthy, and get smaller berries, thicker skins, more intense, and they get balanced. And we don't need to work so much with the tractor and can save the soil for the next generations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we are talking now more about the soils and the vineyards, and this is a question maybe also to you, Jamie. Is if we market blaufränkisch wines, is it really important to put the varietal on the label, or is it more important, or can it be more important just talk about the vineyard, the location where it comes from, the vineyard where it comes from? What do you think is the essential communication tool for a grape like that?
Again, the segment of the market that you're approaching. And I think in the first instance, blaufränkisch is the banner under which everyone can gather. And then those who are buying the wine because it's blaufränkisch then can, if they, like for instance, if they buy your wine, they buy a Spitzberg or the Lieu D of the Spitzberg, the geeks will be really interested in that. They want to know what the Spitzberg is, where this has come from, the place, how the place is then interpreted through the lens of this very able grape variety, which has a talent for being a lens for interpreting terroirs. Whilst there'll be people who drink your wine in restaurants, who, for them, it's just a brilliant example of blaufränkisch. So I think the first instance is to use the, or Kekfrankosch or Lemberger, whatever, to use the variety as the way of bringing people in. Because this is, I think Guillaume was putting out this idea that there's something about this variety that you can actually, which is fascinating results, you can demonstrate in terms of wine aroma. This is a variety that has its own imprint. And so this is the first point. And then, obviously, when it comes down to interesting wine, almost all interesting wines are located in a place, and they speak of that place, and they speak of the time as well, the vintage. So that this is what's fascinating about wine. But you have to bring people in gently.
Thank you very much. Guillaume, I want to ask you a question about Slovenia blaufränkisch, because somebody yesterday at dinner said that at the moment it's the easiest wines to sell in Slovenia is, I think it was Laški Riesling and blaufränkisch. And I said, wow, that's fantastic, because in Austria it is very difficult to make people understand that you can drink blaufränkisch on a daily basis. So what is your experience?
First of all, I'm pretty curious who told you that, because actually it's not easy to sell. It's not easy to sell. I mean, I will reply for both, and quickly Laški Riesling, and then we'll focus on blaufränkisch. Laški Riesling, which is the most sold white in Croatia as Graševina, but in Slovenia, a single variety is really hard to sell, and often is blended in less easy to drink wine. But it is the most planted variety. Laški Riesling is most planted white variety in Slovenia, as the case in many countries in Central Europe. For blaufränkisch, I think it's a very good place to speak about it, because it's the cradle of blaufränkisch movement in Slovenia. And this festival, what has been initiated years ago, here, we need to understand that even here, where you find the most blaufränkisch producers in Slovenia, 15 years ago, you could not find more or less any bottle of Frankinia on the table in the restaurant here, in this region. And then, step by step, this move started to bring, and especially with some very top restaurant pushing, like Costina Reproche, for instance, where we went yesterday, really pushing to bring the thing to open the eyes of people. And now it started to be, okay, clearly that's our flagship here in the region. And now we are taking step by step at further level to try to bring it at national level. What we're still missing, I believe, is what you have in Austria, is a critical mass of top producers, meaning that wine that you are not generally confident, you are taking people, international people coming here and know that your wine will stand, is still missing, but clearly the picture nowadays is much, much better compared to even 5 years ago. So there is really a work in progress. And this kind of actually event also will really help to build a network that the producers are speaking, meeting with people with different horizons, and to progress, basically.
So what do you think is the future of this conference, or what would you on the podium expect or wish what the blaufränkisch community could do in the future together, and where could it lead to?
Well, it's up to us and to build the future, basically. But I was really positively surprised when we started to discuss about that especially with David, like a few years ago. And then we started to launch something at a round table during Vivinum. It was, I think, just before COVID, 2020. And I was positively surprised to see all the supporters that this variety has. And speaking with different people, we just realized that everything is more is here. It's just missing something to light and to make a big boom. And based, for instance, what happened. It was very interesting yesterday evening. Because we had some sommelier from Slovenia, and they were all very pleased with the evening, and I'm sure, because we were getting the feedback that we got, that will contribute to put blaufränkisch a bit more on the map, but it's not, we shouldn't stop now. We should try to move forward and seeing people as well like Zoltan driving all the way from Hungary. We have people from Croatia as well coming today just to attend this conference. That just shows there is force. It's just a matter to connect people and move forward, basically.
I was thinking that, especially in Hungary, I think there is always this thought, since we have quite a lot of blaufränkisch planted, really more than 7,000 hectares. Very often, I think the biggest lack what we have as winemakers is that there is no clear signature style of a winemaker, and often there is very simple blaufränkisch and at very low prices, which is quite approachable for the entry-level market, but doesn't tell much about the terroir or the winemaker's approach. And just what David also mentioned, in the higher class or higher priced wines, there is often really much of this concentration war going on with over-ripeness and good maceration, strong maceration. So I think my takeaway from here, and I would like to, it's very motivating to be here for me because there is obviously an interest, and I think Hungary belongs to this conversation, and there is definitely more than 2 handful of growers who would like to take part in this conversation in the future. So my takeaway is that I think we'll have to develop on each of the winemakers' style, and we have to develop single vineyard wines and our sortiment enable to take part in this conversation about the terroirs and blaufränkisch, blaufränkisch.
Is there any open questions? If yes, ask them now, and otherwise it's over. No, everything is answered.
I might. Is this on? Yes. Yes. I think we need expensive blaufränkisch to give it to the critics, and they will write about it, and this will give publicity. And this is how small regions or obscure grape varieties come to life. That's the idea. So, and I think you're doing that, but that's one of the ways. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. It's about I believe it's about of course network and content. Of course, it's not just too many. You need to show things, but to build the right network, which was actually the starting point when I met with Dorley years ago, because with the University of Nova Gorica we were working to apply, and Klosterneuburg as well, partner to apply for a project around blaufränkisch and gastronomy at say Danube region level. And I was amazed when I came here. I was with my new eyes, foreigner coming here, to see there is so much in common in all this country, but they are so close. They don't know each other anymore. And that's I think that's really when we manage to step by step, and this kind of event will help a lot. Just to realize, oh, wow, what's going on across the border? Oh, that's fantastic. Or I know that they are here as well. The winemaker from Feravino in Croatia, the same. They're really pushing. They're really kind of isolated in Croatia to try to push for Frankovka, but they really believe in, and they're trying as well to make the move. So all this step-by-step connection, I think, will help to move forward. Yeah.
No, just I want to add something that when I received the invitation as well, and was the blaufränkisch was the main subject, I jumped. No, I say yes, because it's true that today also we have so many information. Well, there was also Provine, it was Vivinum, it was so much events, and sometimes today there's a lot of information together, and there is a need also to focus, to see something in depth, and to explore more, to taste more, and also because the grape, it's about different countries as well. And that I think it's very, very interesting. If we do a Malbec show, maybe it's France and Argentina mostly, so it's a little bit boring. But here I think there is more, less actors, but more interest in the diversity and the interpretations of this grape. So I didn't have a doubt that I wanted to come.
Merci. Gracias. So I think, yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that in terms of promotion, in the case of Riesling, where I have a lot of experience in seminars of this sort, and there have been some spectacular successes in recent decades of bringing people together, growers and consumers and critics together around Riesling. Eventually, with blaufränkisch, I mean, we should be so lucky. We hope we reach the point that has long ago been reached with Riesling, which is everybody comes together in praise of Riesling, but Riesling becomes the hero of the story. And at some point, especially when you look at it from the perspective of the restaurant trade, Grüner Veltliner is a niche now in restaurants, and that's wonderful for Austria. And it's not too bad for anybody else, because Austria is still really the only country that has staked its reputation to that degree on Grüner Veltliner. On the other hand, with Riesling, at some point, growers realize that it gets treated as a niche, as a commodity on wine lists, and that they're all in competition with one another. And then you reach that difficult point where the emphasis has to be no longer on the grape variety, but on how, as a grower in the Mosel, or a grower in the Finger Lakes, or a grower in Eden Valley, how you can bring out the distinctiveness of your place. And then you're talking terroir, really. Then you're talking trying to market your place. And that's, so we hope we'll be so lucky with blaufränkisch, but at some point, maybe a decade or so from now, then you reach a difficult transitional stage where the grape can no longer be the hero. And I mean, we're going to see tomorrow in the tasting how much potential in so many different places for blaufränkisch. And, you know, I mean, I think it will achieve that niche status, hopefully. That's the first stage, where a restaurateur feels we need to have blaufränkisch representation. But then, of course, at that point, we have to build on that and really transition to the promotion of regional identity and uniqueness.
Amen.
Thank you. You mentioned the tasting tomorrow. I think this is the next official moment where we sit together.
Yeah, it's like tomorrow we have a tasting. So we are limited spot. So we'll see where are we with the having filling the spot. It's about 70 people that could attend the tasting in 2 sessions. Tomorrow we start. It's at 9:30, I think. At Albiana One Estate, so 21 21 producers from 6-7 different countries. They all reply positively and were keen to send samples straight away. So that shows as well the will to move forward and to show the world what blaufränkisch is able to do.
Fantastic. So.
Thank you very much, everyone, for attending this conference. A big thanks again to our international guests to be here with us. Thanks, Albert, for leading the party today. And we'll see you very soon, I guess. Thank you very much.
Guess who has the blue mic here? Okay, that was the international conference part, and zdaj sledi seveda podelitev nagrad iz ocenjevanja modrih frankin, da ostanite v dvorani. Bo kratko in jedrnato in pa zelo slovesno.
Tako je, bomo. Kratki in jedrnati. To je ena stvar, ki smo jo, verjamem, da v večini težko pričakovali. Od lanskega leta naprej je namreč praksa, da rezultate zadržimo v krogih komisije in organizatorja ocenjevanja modrih frankin, in sicer v organizaciji KŠTM Sevnica je 6. maja na posestvu v Krakovu potekalo 12. ocenjevanje modrih frankin. Strokovna komisija v sestavi Grega Repovš, Ožbej Peterle, dr. Klemen Lisjak, dr. Guillaume Talik, François Bouton. Komisije je ocenila 61 prispelih vzorcev. Zvrstilo se je 14 vzorcev aktualnega letnika 2021, 32 modrih frankin starejših letnikov, 10 rozejev, 3 penine in 2 predikatni vini iz modre frankinje. Mogoče bi Robert samo na kratko opisal, kako je potekalo letošnje ocenjevanje, pa en kratek vtis komisije.
Če z enim drugim klobukom na glavi, pozdravljeni. Torej, bila je moška zasedba komisije, to je mogoče tista stvar, ki mogoče nam ni bila najbolj všeč na koncu, ampak smo že sprejeli ukrepe v tej smeri, tako da bo drugače. Ok, zelo na kratko, kaj nas je fasciniralo pravzaprav, so bile modre frankinje letnika 21, ki so običajno bilo kar ta težka degustacija, bi rekel, mladih frankin, modrih frankin, medtem ko letos smo videli kar nekaj odličnega materijala in celo stvari, ki se bodo lahko odlično starale. In seveda letnik 17 je bil tisti, ki na koncu mislim, da dal celo prvaka, je tisti, ki se je pokazal. Ostali 3 letniki, še posebej 20, so se zdeli precej zahtevni. Penin je bilo zelo malo, da bi dal neko bi rekel, širšo oceno, medtem ko kaj je pa tudi pokazalo, kategorija, ki je pokazala odličen potencial, in pa ne samo potencial, ampak dejanske rezultate so bili rozeji. Bilo jih je 10, če se prav spomnim, 10 rozejev in med njimi so bili prav lepi primerki. Tako da, ko govorimo o tej diverzifikaciji slogov, ki je tukaj možna z modro frankinjo, roze je prav gotovo stvar, ki je pri modri frankini treba vzeti v obzir. Toliko na en tak overview.
Ocenjevanje in pa festival modre frankinje podpirajo tudi na občini Sevnica. Gospod župan Srečko Cvirk se je zaradi občinskega sveta moral opravičiti, ker smo danes bili malo daljši, kot smo sprva načrtovali. Bo pa Robertu, bom še vsem prosila, če za malo pomoči, pomagala podeliti priznanja in pa nagrade letošnjim najvišje uvrščenim, direktorica KŠTM Sevnica, gospa Mojca Prnovšek, tako da oba še enkrat lepo vabim na oder. Kot rečeno, je komisija modre frankinje ocenjevala v 5 kategorijah. Začeli so z aktualnim letnikom, sledile so nekoliko zahtevnejše, starejše in zrelejše frankinje v kategoriji starejši letnik in barik, za konec pa so se posvetili še rozejem, peninam in predikatom. Ob razglasitvi pa bomo šli v obratni smeri in začeli s predikati. 2 predikata je ocenila strokovna komisija, in tako bomo podelili danes srebrno in zlato priznanje. Srebrno priznanje za likersko vino letnik 2018 Keros prejme vinarstvo Kerin. Bomo fotografiranje potem ob koncu še. Lahko pospremimo še z enim aplavzom. In zlato priznanje je modra frankinja iz sušenega grozdja letnik 2010, vinska klet Prus. Eno fotografijo. Hvala. V kategoriji penečih vin so člani strokovne komisije letos ocenili 3 vzorce. Bi pa si jih želeli več, pa vendar, naj bo to vzpodbuda za prihodnje leto. Bronasto priznanje za metliško penino roze prejme Kaze Metlika, vinska klet Metlika. Mislim, da predstavnika ni danes z nami, ampak vseeno en aplavz velja. In gremo kar na srebrno priznanje. Srebrno priznanje za penino Zara roze prejme vino Kozinc. Zdaj pa predlagam, da David ostane kar na odru, glede na to, da vemo, da je v naši občini prav lepo zastopan s peninami iz modre frankinje, tudi zlato priznanje za penino Blanc de Noir za vino Kozinc. Sicer tudi lanski prvak festivala. Že navajen odnašati priznanja z odra. Robert je povedal, da je modra frankinja zelo primerna sorta tudi za pridelavo vin roze in da je komisijo tudi letos ta navdušila. Točke pa so pokazale takole. Bronasto priznanje za roze iz modre frankinje prejme Nejc Rumpret. Srebrno priznanje za roze letnik 2021, vino Kozinc. Ja. In še zlato priznanje v kategoriji rozejev iz modrih frankin. Za roze letnik 2021 prejme Kaze Metlika, vinska klet Metlika. In smo že pri aktualnih letnikih, letniku 2021. Ki pa je letos prav tako bilo majhno presenečenje za člane ocenjevalne komisije, pozitivno seveda, tudi ena spodbuda o začetkih razmišljanja o možnosti dodati še eno kategorijo, ampak letos se je pokazalo takole. Bronasto priznanje oziroma srebrno priznanje, zato ker bomo v tej kategoriji podelili 2 zlati priznanji, namreč najvišje število točk je bilo podvojeno. Se pravi, srebrno priznanje za modro frankinjo letnika 2021 prejme vino Kozinc. Kdaj si stal? Tule sem sed zdaj. K Davidu gremo na salamo danes večer. In zdaj 2 zlati priznanji. Še eno bo ostalo v Sevnici, modra frankinja, letnik 2021, vino Kobal. In pa še eno zlato priznanje, enako za modro frankinjo letnik 2021 z enakim številom točk 88,75 prejme kmečka zadruga Krško, klet Krško. In smo že pri zadnji kategoriji modrih frankin starejšega letnika in barik. Tule v tej kategoriji pa bomo glede na število točk podelili 2 srebrni priznanji in pa eno zlato. Začnemo kar s srebrno. Za modro frankinjo, First Lady, kuve modrih frankin, vino Masnak, Kerin, Kobal in Kozinc, prejme KŠTM Sevnica, ki tudi stoji za tem vinom. To je bilo prav prijetno presenečenje. In še eno srebrno priznanje za modro frankinjo, letnik 2017, prejme kmečka zadruga Krško, klet Krško. In še zlato priznanje za modro frankinjo starejšega letnika in barik prejme vina Jelenič za modro frankinjo letnik 2017. Na ocenjevanju modrih frankin, ki se odvije v sklopu festivala modrih frankin, vsako leto dobimo tudi prvaka festivala. In to ostaja do zadnjega skrivnost. Lansko leto smo navdušili in presenetili Sevničana. David Kozinc je s ponosom prenosni pokal imel razstavljen v svoji kleti in ga je z veseljem tudi pokazal. Mi pa bomo zdaj slišali, kam se ta pokal letos predstavlja, kam se seli. Letos se je v ožji izbor uvrstilo 9 modrih frankin, 6 iz kategorije starejši letnik in barik ter 3 modre frankinje aktualnega letnika. Po sistemu rangiranja je vsak član komisije razvrstil vseh 9 modrih frankin po vrsti od najbolj do manj všečne. Odločitev je bila malo da ne sklepčna. 8 od 9 članov strokovne komisije je to modro frankinjo postavilo na prvo mesto. Že drugo leto izbor potrjuje, da je bil letnik 2017 frankinji naklonjen. In že drugo leto zapored pokal prvaka festivala modre frankinje ostaja v Posavju. Prvak festivala Modre Frankinje leta 2022 je postal Marjan Jelenič iz vina Jelenič. Modra Frankinja letnik 2017 je prinesla novega prvaka v Posavje. Kostanjevica na Krki, iskrene čestitke. A lahko mogoče izzovem sam za eno misel.
Bom povedal v športnem žargonu, 4-krat drugi, enkrat sem pa tudi do prvega prišel.
Še enkrat vsem prejemnikom priznanj iskrene čestitke. Rezultati ocenjevanja bodo objavljeni danes na spletni strani www.modra-frankinja.com. Objavljeni pa bodo tudi v tiskani različici kataloga na festivalu Modre Frankinje na Sevniškem gradu 9. junija. Hvala podeljevalcema. Jaz sem pa lovila tistih 15 minut zamude, ki smo jo imeli od začetka, tako da smo v času. Hvala še enkrat gostom, hvala vsem vam, ki ste si vzeli čas in bili danes z nami. Naj se vam zdaj vseeno ne mudi preveč domov, v spodnjih prostorih smo za vas pripravili še kozarček Modre Frankinje, ker mislim, da je čas, da jo končno danes tudi pokusimo, in pa nekaj tradicionalnih sevniških suhih mesnin. Še enkrat lepo vabljeni, da ste z nami tudi v četrtek, 9. junija med 5. in 10. uro na že 12. festivalu Modre Frankinje, kjer bodo na pokušino tudi najboljše med njimi. Za konec pa le še nasvet, ko boste iskali vino, v katerem bi uživali v družbi koga posebnega, velja izbrati modro. Hvala in srečno.